Beletrina, živo.
Zdravo, hello. I'm Carlosom Pascualom, and this is one episode more of Beletrina, živo. And in this case, we're going to be talking. I would have the fortune of having a conversation with Pol Guasch and about the translation into Slovene of his novel Napalm, which is translated by Veronica Roth for Beletrina as Napalm, srcu. Welcome, Paul. Thank you very much for being with us in the other side of the wire.
Hi, thank you very much.
Well, Paul, do you, with this experience of being translated in Slovene and being invited to this festival, did you had any awareness of the strong cultural parallels between Catalonia and Slovenia at all?
Like, you mean before coming to Slovenia?
Yes, these strong parallels between language, culture that Slovenia and Catalonia share.
Yes, I think that there is like a lot of common things between like Catalan people and Slovenian people. And it was beautiful because when I came to talk about the novel in Ljubljana, a lot of people were very happy. Like, we are happy that the Slovene is the first, they said it's the first small language in which the novel is translated. So I thought it was very beautiful, like, to find this kind of brotherhood between like Catalan language and Catalan literature, and also like Slovenian language and Slovenian literature. So yes, I think that we have like a lot of things in common, and for me it was beautiful to come there and to talk about the novel for the Slovenian people. It was really nice. Yes.
Yeah, that is I think would be one of the first links that we would establish here, because what I would expect is that our conversation, I don't want to bombard you with most of the questions that you've been bothered with this long, I presume, line of interviews. But more than anything, if we're successful, I want to seduce the Slovene reader to approach your book. And also another goal will be to approach your book with an open-mindedness, that we won't constrain it into labels and all that, but we're gonna get into that. First thing, here we are, a Catalonian and a Mexican speaking English about a book that has been translated into Slovene, which brings us to one of the main things that are floating around in your book, which is language. And what I would like you to invite us is, how come language became this in your book? And with this, I will try precisely not to invite the Slovene reader not to establish immediately, you know, a cultural historical reading, that it's probably what you would expect from a reader when they discover this place that language have in your book.
Mm-hmm. Yes, in fact, I was well, I will start from the beginning. Like, when I started to write this novel, which I was not planning to write, you know, I was not like, okay, I'm going to write a novel which is going to be about this topic and this other topic and so on. I had like 3 or 4 ideas which were super clear for me, and one of them, and I didn't know how to work with that, you know, was okay, I want to talk about languages, and I want to talk about cultures, and about like cultural oppression and linguistic oppression. And in fact, this is, of course, because, I mean, I say of course, and I don't know if I'm not that sure about that, but I think it really has to do with my origins, you know, and with my language, with my culture, with Catalan culture and Catalan language, of course. But I was not trying to portray something that happens only here in Catalonia, or I was not trying to like write or an allegory or a symbolic story about Catalan people and Spanish people, you know, not at all. And when the novel was published in Catalan, I was kind of worried, like, oh my God, I don't want people to read this like as an allegory of what is happening here. And it didn't happen, so I'm happy about that. Because I think I was trying to talk about something that a lot of people have suffered and a lot of people have lived, or a lot of people do know what I'm talking about, which is like linguistic oppression, you know? So what happens when someone tells you that you cannot speak this way and you have to speak in another way, or you have to name the world in a different way than the one that you do it, that you use it, right? So that was maybe the beginning of the writing of the novel. I want to talk about cultural oppression. I want to talk about linguistic oppression, and I do think it's something that we don't really think a lot about it in our like daily lives. You know, we talk about feminism, we talk about anti-racism, we talk about like a lot of struggles, a lot of political struggles, but we usually forget that there is one struggle which is related to language, and language is completely related to a particular idea of identity and a particular idea of community, right? So when I started writing the novel, I was a little bit, I was not angry, but I was kind of confused. Like, why are we talking a lot about feminism, ecologism? I don't know, a lot about a lot of different political struggles, and all the people who talk about these political struggles, which are of course super important, they usually forget the linguistic topic or the linguistic political struggle as something which is very important to talk about our identity, our ideas of community, and also to imagine which future we want to live in, right? So in which kind of future we want to see ourselves. So this was something very important to me. And when I was writing the novel, so after the weeks, I was, when I was like more into the story, I was more sure that I wanted to write about that. And I wanted to portray this in a very complex, let's put it this way, like in a very complex way. I didn't want to say there is like a bad community which is big and hegemonic, which is oppressing a small community which is good. And, you know, I didn't want to say that. I wanted to go deeper in this question and to ask myself questions related to identity, to community, to language, to oppression. So at the end, what happens when you are, you know, like I was not trying to make something abstract or something general. I was trying to portray something very particular, but not focused only in my reality, but focused in a struggle, like focused on a struggle, which I think is like so much wider than the one that happens in Catalonia, for example, or in Slovenia. Mhm.
Of course, yes, yes. And I know and that's what I'm saying. The Slovene reader would be very sensitive to this because of obvious historical, linguistic, sociological reasons. Hegemonical languages being imposed is not a foreign concept to Slovenes. Although fortunate for many young readers, which will be also a lot of the audiences that will be reading your book, this has been more of a thing that they have learned as a historical fact. I didn't have the chance to give a little bit of a bio. We have such a little time, but for everybody who would try to approach your work, there's all the chances of doing it online. You have many accolades, recognitions. You wrote 2 volumes of poetry, but with this novel, you got the Anagrama Libre Prize 2021, I think so. You found yourself writing this novel without a clear concept. You just start to writing fragments. I've been listening to some of your interviews. But I presume also that you didn't intend to write a specific genre. You were not out there to write a dystopian book. I think you also have said this. Many people will be tempted to say that, to put it a label as a speculative literature, post-apocalyptic literature, but that is something that I would invite the reader to get rid of and work directly as an accomplice of the writer into constructing and deciding what the story is about. And also, that's why I wouldn't want us to talk a lot about the plot, because I want this to be more like a teaser than a trailer. I want the people to be invited to get into this literary adventure of reading your work. Were you troubled with these labels when you were writing this, or is something that you will just find by the time that the book has to be published and marketed and sold?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question. When I'm writing, I'm not thinking at all about what I'm doing, and I'm not thinking at all about what's going to happen after the writing, you know. So when I'm writing, I'm just focusing on exploring what is going on there. And I'm like, I always say that I'm in the same level as my characters and my landscapes and the worlds that I try to describe, you know. Like, I don't have like an hegemonical position over like my writing, over the stories that I write. I just like go with them. They go with me and I go with them. So I don't think at all about what is going to happen after that. But it's true that when the novel was published in Catalonia, like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I was like shocked, you know, because some people started to talk about the dystopia. And I was like, no, I was not trying to write a dystopia at all, you know. I was just focusing on things that have happened in so many places in the world so many times, and things that are happening right now not so far away from us. And but the thing that happens in my novel is that you don't really know when it's happening and where it's happening, so you don't have a clear space and a clear time of the novel. So this makes you feel sometimes a little bit lost, in the sense that you don't have like easy answers for the questions that the novel kind of creates, right? So when we are lost regarding time and space, we usually need to say something about that, right? Like a clear idea about what is going on there. So then people started to talk about a dystopia, and I can understand it, in the sense that the world that I try to portray, it's not like the best of the worlds, and it's kind of a sad situation and not a very like desirable world to live in. But this doesn't make this world or this story to be a dystopia, right? But then with the time, I just discovered that it's so difficult to have control about what people say about you. So you don't really have to suffer about that, because it doesn't matter what you say about your own work. At the end, like when you publish it, then people are just going to say whatever they feel, right, about that. So I don't really, I try not to focus a lot on what people say about my work. And I just like, if someone wants to see there a dystopia, it's because of something, right? So I don't have anything to say about that. I did like my work, I did my writing, and then I cannot have control of what people are going to say about that. But if you ask me, I will say that it's not a dystopia. But if people say it, then it's not a problem for me at all. Yeah.
Okay, and I had the fortune also of having a coffee with your translator, with Veronica Roth, and we were talking about the difficult task in terms of the tense in which the book is written. You have also a master's degree on contemporary literature and theory from King's College in Oxford. You have a formal approach into literature. I'm pretty sure that you knew and were playing with this management of time, the tense, which I think it's remarkable, because this is part of the puzzle that was driving me crazy.
Yes.
Fun crazy. I mean, I enjoyed. There was always the sense that as a reader, I was arriving to the fact just minutes before that they had happened. Were you trying to achieve something with this management of time? Or it was just
Yes.
the way in which you were playing with the story?
No, like I think it has a lot to do with the prior question. Like, you know, like when I was writing the novel, I was thinking that I wanted to create a particular world, you know. So this is why I didn't say this is happening in Ljubljana, or this is happening in Barcelona, or this is happening in London. I wanted to create my own world, which only happens in this novel, you know? So only happens in this story. This world, it's only real within these words. And that was very important to me because I wanted to create something very, very particular, not something like universal or abstract. I wanted to create something very particular. And the same with the time. I wanted to create a time which was not, I don't know how to say it, which was not like in depth with our experience or our of what they say that time is, you know. So I didn't want to create a story in which there was like a beginning and an ending, in which like everything happened in a rational way, like that everything had like a consequence and every consequence had its cause. I don't want to do that because I don't think that we experience reality in this way. So I think that a lot of novels or a lot of art, a lot of films, what they do is they just like create an order, which is an ideological purpose somehow, a political choice. They create an order of a reality that we experience in a very different way. Like I experience my reality in a very chaotic way. Lots of things are happening to me that I don't know why they are happening. Um, a lot of memories come to me and I don't know why they come to me or why in this particular moment, you know. So like temporality, it's not something clear. Temporality, it's not something obvious. Temporality, it's not something that we can have control of it, you know. So I wanted to create this experience for the reader. So, okay, my novel is not going to put an order in this chaotic reality. My novel is going to try, at least try, to create a particular way to show how we experience reality in this chaotic and not ordered at all way, right? So yes, it was like a challenge for me to create this experience. And sometimes the reader can feel lost, but I don't think this is a problem because we also feel lost in our lives. So why do we want to have like a destiny in literature when we don't have it in our real lives? So this was something that was in my mind during like the writing of the novel all the time. Yes. Mhm.
Yes, and I also have read you claim influences not only literary from different areas of art. And I see also in the first part of the book, I see that a parallel of a technique that I normally relate to painting, that it's some kind of a glazing technique, you know, it's like layers. In this, you say that sometimes you feel lost. I was lost most of the time. I was interested and lost, but then it was like the time was not progressive, but then it was created this way in which we create reality. You were creating it with layers, one layer after the other one, layers that are transparent, that are not like solid blocks of knowledge. Were you aware of this construction of reality? And I say, mostly in the first part, this happens when you building this reality from which we would travel with the character away from it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's very beautiful to think it as layers. I have never thought it that way before. Like when I was writing it, I had the idea of um like I don't know how to say, like spots, like if there were like if every page, because like every chapter is a page and every chapter is just a paragraph, it's just like a particular shape of the novel. I was thinking like I was putting stones one next to the other and they were like building a shape that I didn't know how it was beforehand. And the idea of layers, I think it's beautiful because when you talk about transparent layers, because on like behind every layer, you can see what is there, you know, so what was there before the other layer. And I think this has to do a lot with the idea of temporality too. So a way to understand writing in the sense that every word that you use and every picture that you portray and every landscape that you describe have an effect to all the other things that you are going to write afterwards. So the idea that all the writing is, I don't know, that it really matters what you write, like which word you use, because this is going to have like a important impact on the other words that you are going to use. Like, so in some way, I think I am very like conscious when I write that language is not just a medium to share a story, to write a story, but language is the possibility to write the story, you know. And it's not just the possibility, it's not just the medium, but it's just like the like the matter that I have to work with, you know, like a painter has like colors, and I have language. So I am very aware of that. And I think that my language is very conscious itself. I don't know if maybe it's too abstract what I'm saying. I don't know if it makes sense, but I think it has to do a lot with this idea of layers, you know, that the story is like building itself of all the time, that you don't really have a clear idea of the story. So the story is like being built like step by step, word by word, image by image all the time. So they are constantly like one on top of the other all the time. And they are building like a sense because all these paragraphs, all these words, all these colors are together. Yeah.
Yes, and we're almost closing this conversation. I knew it was going to be too short. You also use all the type of language, use some visual language. And I also read in an interview that you approach this always like, you know, it's a source of frustration that the language as this material, as these stones, as these tools would always be in a way insufficient. And that level of frustration, you tried to find a way to get closer to what you were trying to say. How successful were you?
Well, I don't know. I think I should ask that to you. Like, was I successful? Because
well, the
I,
frustration, you were talking about your frustration. I was, yes, then I'll tell you about me.
I can talk about my frustration, but not about my success, I think. Um, well, you know, I did that because I really think that you can say lots of things with words. You can create lots of things with words, but they are sometimes not enough, for me at least, or when I try to write what I try to write. So I also I studied literature, but I also studied arts, and I think it's like the idea that language is not just words. It's something that it's very like obvious for me. And when I was writing the novel, and every time I'm writing, like my second novel, what I'm writing right now, I have the idea that not like I don't, they call me writer, and so people suppose that I'm going to use words to explain my stories, and that's true, but not because they tell me that I am a writer, it means that I cannot use other languages to tell stories and to write stories. So I think that you can also write stories with pictures, that you can also write stories with drawings, and that when you put all these languages together, they can create something wider. So, for example, like at the end of the novel, there is like one particular feeling that I wanted to portray, like the feeling of the main character at the end of the novel is a very particular feeling. And I thought, I don't have the words to describe that, but I have a picture in my mind. So I'm going to put this picture in the novel, and I'm going to tell that this is how the main character feels. And I really think that I didn't have the words to describe that feeling, but with the pictures, you can really grasp what this character is feeling in this moment. And people understand it, and I understood it. So this idea that language, it can sometimes be frustrating, I try not to frustrate myself with that and explore like new paths or new ways to say and to explain what I wanted to. Mhm.
Well, I won't be closing this with ideas of success, because that is not my idea when I approach a book. I'm just thankful for the chance that this invitation to have this conversation with you that allowed me, that invited me to get into this world that Napalm Alco has created. I have to say that if we would have to talk about certain success, it's definitely that these very specific, very local, not local because of a geographical situation, had really produced something very universal with a character that doesn't even have a name, or at least we don't know the name of the voice that is guiding into this story. And I want just to re-invite the people here in Slovenia to get into that world, and get into that world with their backpack of this literary adventure. Would you add anything to this invitation, Paul?
Well, just like, thank you very much for reading the novel and for these beautiful questions. And I think it's very nice what you say, that what happens when a particular story, with like a very, very particular story, like this one, the story of a character whose like name we don't know, becomes somehow universal, you know, that a lot of people from different languages think that their story is talking about them or is talking to them. So I think that's beautiful, and that only happens when you don't want to find universality. So if you are searching universality and you want to portray universality, you will probably fail. But if you focus on a very particular story in a very particular world, maybe you will be able to find something very, very particular that at the end is something that it's like in everyone's hearts. I know it sounds a little bit clumsy, but I think it's true. So I think it's beautiful to finish our conversation with that. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. It has been a pleasure talking to you, as I expect from reading you, and hope to have the chance of talking to you in the future.
I hope that too. Thank you very much for the questions.
Goodbye. Thank you very much for being with us, and thank you for paying attention to this conversation. And please, if you have a chance, go and look for Napalm srcu. Thank you.
Beletrina, v živo.